Hello everyone and welcome to Season 6, Episode 6 of Pro Wrestling's Top 50. I'm your host Travis McNeil, and today we continue our countdown of the top 50 matches of 2021 with match number 45 on our list, which is the AEW World Title Exploding Barbed Wire Death Match between the champion Kenny Omega and the challenger Jon Moxley from the AEW Revolution 2021 event held on March the 7th of 2021. This is a match that is certainly going to be one of the most memorable matches of 2021, for better or for worse. It is definitely going to be remembered with the explosion fail at the conclusion of the contest. I still can't believe that went down the way it did. But I want to shine some light on how great the match is before that moment. If that moment went off without a hitch, I think it would be, held in a lot higher regard than overall, the whole package does, I think, because the match, unfortunately was overshadowed by that catastrophe. But everything that Moxley and Omega did in this match is incredible, and something that I really look for, in pro wrestling, and when I do these countdowns especially, is I look for things that are unique and things that are different. I've been watching wrestling a very long time, over 30 years. So, I feel in a lot of ways that I've seen it all. I've certainly seen exploding barbed wire matches before in FMW and in Japan, and I've seen indies try to emulate it in the United States to generally very poor results. But to see a match like this presented on mainstream wrestling TV, one, was incredible. And two, to see it presented so lovingly, I think really is what made it so special to me. This match, AEW really went all out and tried to, honor the history of the exploding barbed wire match. Specifically Onita, being the pioneer and the innovator of that style. And they did this build up on TV where, these guys were the original feud when Dynamite started. It was, Moxley and Omega. They were the hook, for what was originally going to be, Double or Nothing, but then, Moxley got a staph infection and it ended up, happening at Full Gear. But they were the original, feud that was to kick off AEW. Moxley would end up winning the title, being the second champion. He would end up dropping it to Kenny Omega, with the Omega heel turn, siding with Don Callis. And it led us to this rematch, and they did a really good job building it up. I didn't love Omega's title win. I was a little critical of it at the time, because I felt that, AEW, even though they were over a year in with Dynamite, they still, to me, hadn't built up the goodwill to have, their third ever champion, win it through shenanigans. But, ultimately it all ended up working fine when all was said and done. But they used that feud coming into this match, and they had just a really great build up for it, where, it's funny because I remember, I was watching AEW on Dynamite on a big delay, and I was kind of falling asleep, and ended up waking up in the closing moments of an episode where I heard, Kenny Omega say exploding barbed wire death match, and I legitimately thought I was dreaming. But it turned out I wasn't, and they were actually going to do this match. It was crazy. But they do so much good stuff in the build for this. They have, these kind of campy, vignettes with Kenny Omega and Don Callis, working on the explosions. And, when I was a kid, some of the most memorable vignettes that I saw were, Undertaker working on the casket for Kamala and all of this great stuff. So I really liked that. We had, Atsushi Onita on AEW television cutting a promo about the exploding barbed wire death match, which was incredible. Even if, a good chunk of that audience had no idea who that man was, they did a really good job in, showing that respect. They had Moxley coming out to Wild Thing for this match and wearing the leather jacket. Bryce Remsburg, the referees, in the hazmat suit to really sell the danger of the explosions. And it's all just so well done, and it's such a loving tribute, and it creates this great package that made this match feel incredibly unique and like something you're not going to get elsewhere. And that, to me, is what makes AEW so great. It's presenting itself as this alternative, and, yes, that they have, great traditional wrestling and whatnot, but you get these outside-the-box things you aren't going to see in the WWE or elsewhere. And for me, as a wrestling fan, that's something that I'm looking for. The match itself, It's so well done, and it's funny because we've seen these hardcore kind of gritty deathmatch style matches in AEW. We had the Gage and Jericho match in 2021 that had glass and light tubes, and when you watch a deathmatch on the indies, you have this kind of overlaying level of grime across it all. It makes it all very visceral and real. And when you translate that to, an AEW stage, you kind of lose a bit of that. And it feels like kind of like a cleansed death match. And, that's what this feels like in a way with, the explosions and things like that. But it works. And these two, they really work it so well as like it's a classic, no rope barbed wire match with all of the great teases and, all of the build to the big spots. They have the countdown gimmick here. So, 3 sides of the ring are, wrapped, no rope barbed wire with this exploding wire. And on the floor, they have these barbed wire landmines that explode if you make contact with them. And then they have, all of these explosions rigged around ringside that will all go off if the match reaches the 30-minute time limit. Very, FMW-esque with that. So in the early goings, we get all of the classic teases with the wire and them, trying to push each other into it and building that suspense. They end up fighting on the ramp. They go out through the side of the ring that doesn't have the wire, and Jon Moxley retrieves his barbed wire baseball bat, which was his staple, when these two had their original feud at the start of the Dynamite era. So he brings that in and he, uses it to the midsection of Kenny. And Kenny Omega goes deep into the bag of tricks and throws powder in Moxley's eyes. And something that I really loved is, you have this scary, dangerous death match, but you have the heel champion using this very, almost comical, typical kind of heel trope. And it was this great, great image in the story that they told in this match where, Moxley is this dangerous street fighting deathmatch guy and Kenny Omega is the more, traditional classic, heel world champion wrestler that's found himself in this environment, by his own doing, really. So he uses the powder and everybody does such a great job here. So Moxley's blinded and he's, blindly swinging around this barbed wire baseball bat. And Bryce Remsburg is so good, dodging out of the way. And it gives us the first taste of the exploding wire where Omega is able to throw the blinded Moxley into the wire. And the explosion, thankfully, looks great. They did such a good job with the rope explosions for this match. And again, I've seen exploding barbed wire matches on the indies that, they just kind of fizzle and spark a little bit. But these went off big time and really, really, really great visuals, which is exactly what you want in a match like this. Part I loved where, Kenny Omega, he's again, like I said, he's this traditional heel, champion wrestler, but he's able to kind of intertwine these violent, elements into his classic wrestling. So he goes to work on the leg of Moxley like a heel champion would, like Ric Flair would, right? But when he hits a shin breaker, he does it on an upright garbage can. And he uses this figure 4. And Moxley's counter to it is so great because he grabs a barbed wire covered chair and just starts raking it across, Omega's legs to break the hold. But then, Moxley, he's so full of piss and vinegar and, he has all of this aggression, built up for this match that he misses a charge and goes through a barbed wire board in the corner. When they eventually get to the spot of, Omega finally tasting the wire, it's so good because it comes out of nowhere, but then they make it so satisfying. So Omega goes back to the figure 4 and Moxley kicks him off and Omega goes chest first into the wire, which I definitely wasn't expecting. As he kind of turns around from that selling, Moxley keeps the pace up and hits, like a John Woo front drop kick and sends Omega back first into the wire. And then he follows that up with a T-bone suplex through, a barbed wire board in the corner. So it's all these just great bang, 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 with these spots that create so much satisfaction from it. But it all comes out of nowhere. And, you got to be careful with spots like that because sometimes you might argue, you need to give them room to breathe. But the sequence was so exciting and so cool. And then they gave it that, room to breathe after, the third big move, that it really allowed that nice come down from it. Both guys were bloodied up, good crimson masks. Omega, is wearing a white t-shirt. AEW did an awesome t-shirt, for this match that kind of looked like an old, like, horror movie poster on this, like, white t-shirt. And of course, that's stained with the red blood. So very good outfit choice, Kenny Omega. They, get the barbed wire chair that they used for the figure 4, and they tease moves onto that. They tease the one-winged angel and the paradigm shift. I think Moxley ended up getting like a sidewalk slam on it or something like that. Mox wraps his own arm, in barbed wire to go for a lariat, and that gets ducked, and he gets a snapdragon suplex and a V-trigger from Omega, but he no-sells it and hits the wire lariat. So they're really, going on all cylinders here. We get another explosion where Moxley goes for the paradigm shift once again, and Omega runs him into the wire, but Omega basically goes into the wire face first for the explosion, which is incredibly dangerous. So, kudos to him for wanting to do that spot. And he's so great selling the eyes, and he's dumping a water bottle in to try to flush him out. And it leads to both guys on the apron. And again, Omega is so good because there's those landmines outside, and Omega, teases almost slipping off the ring apron because he can't see. And it's so well done with these teases. These guys really put a lot of thought into this match to do it the justice that it deserves. Both guys go for the eyes, playing off of that explosion. And Moxley ends up hitting a paradigm shift off the apron into the barbed wire landmine at ringside. And the explosion for that was really weak. It was like some sparklers and like little fireworks shooting off. And that maybe, should have been the moment where AEW management decided, like, that didn't look very good. How's our end spot going to go? Maybe we should reconsider. The spot itself still looked fine because, it's crazy DDT off the ring apron onto a barbed wire board. But the explosion left a lot to be desired there. When we're back in the ring, we get the 5-minute warning, sirens that the explosions are going to go off at the 30-minute mark. So, that causes Jon Moxley to really, push the pace and, again, sell, the danger of those explosions. And he goes for, a bunch of falls. Omega ends up getting a low blow and a bunch of V-triggers and finally hits the one-wing angel. In this move, probably the most well-protected move in all of wrestling. Nobody's kicked out of it. It's sold as an instant finish. And they do an amazing spot here. The spot of the match by far where Moxley, manages to get his foot on the rope to break it, which of course causes the explosion to go off once again into Omega's face. And it was so good. Again, so unexpected. A great visual, and just, add it to this overall match that the only way, Moxley could get out of that, because nobody kicks out of it, was, with putting himself in danger and causing another explosion. Our finish here, it is a little overbooked. The Good Brothers, Gallows and Anderson, come out, to help Omega. Moxley gets, one last final hurrah, taking them both out with his barbed wire bat. And it leads to this incredible near fall where Kenny Omega uses an exploding barbed wire bat. Thank you, Onita. That, again, just looks amazing, and it only gets 2. And then the actual finish, a little anticlimactic, after all of the explosions and things like that. Omega goes back to the one-wing angel one more time, and he hits it on, an open chair. So it looks brutal. Obviously, Moxley's not kicking out of that, but I kind of, in a way, wish maybe it ended on the exploding bat shot. I get, wanting to give, Moxley that last kick out and moment of the sun. But, after that, the one-wing angel on the open chair, they even could have done it on the barbed wire chair, and it maybe would have worked better. But that's a minor complaint. Obviously Moxley wasn't kicking out of that, and that was the finish. We get a post-match beatdown, from the Bullet Club guys with the barbed wire bat on Moxley. And that leads to what is supposed to be this incredible big moment where Eddie Kingston, hero to me, hero to all, finally makes his face turn that I think people had really been wanting to see when he rushes out from the back, fights off his own stablemates, the Butcher and the Blade, comes into the ring, as the Elite kind of start to get out of there, and, tries to get Moxley out of the ring. And with the countdown going, realizes that he won't be able to do it, and he does the most heroic thing possible, and he covers up Jon Moxley as the explosions are set to go off. And I'm sure you've seen it. We get sparklers from the posts, and that is it. It was awful. The crowd didn't know how to react. There was stunned silence. There was laughter. There was boos. Poor Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley had to sell that thing to death. AEW, to their credit, they tried to do a pretty good job covering up from it. They had these vignettes of Omega working on the explosives that he, didn't know what he was doing, and he rigged crappy explosives. And, Moxley was beat up from the assault post-match, which is why he wasn't moving. And Kingston, has all of this anxiety and, had PTSD from everything. And, that's why, he couldn't move once he heard the big sounds of the explosions go off. So, they tried to cover it. It was supposed to be this incredible moment that would have been such an amazing close to the pay-per-view, and it didn't work. And again, I wish production, as soon as the sparklers started to go off and they realized it looked bad, would have just cut, the show right then and there, and they maybe could have salvaged it. But unfortunately, that was the sour taste that left everybody who ordered AEW Revolution 2021's mouth, post-show. And I remember just dying laughing about it on Twitter, and I could not believe that happened. But things happen, and like I said, if you cut the match before then, or even, I'm over it at this point. Eddie Kingston's doing amazing things. It's all good. But the match beforehand is so cool. It's so different. It's unlike anything you'll ever see on mainstream American wrestling television. Moxley and Omega, to their credit, they put forth an amazing, dramatic, big spectacle match, which I love so much. So I won't let, the ending hurt that. This match is amazing. I really hope, if you saw it originally and kind of laughed it off, you give it another look, because it's so great. And if you haven't seen it, but, I'm sure you've seen that explosion clip, check the match out, because it is awesome. You can watch this on replay on Fight TV. I'm in Canada. That's how I watch AEW pay-per-views. If you're in the States, I believe it might be on Bleacher Report. You can watch, AEW on your TBS and TNT, on television as well. And the rumor is that, possibly there's going to be an on-demand for them coming soon through HBO Max. So we'll see. Maybe you'll be able to catch that match on there in the near future. You can subscribe to my channel here on YouTube so that you never miss a video. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Wrestling50. And please join me again tomorrow as we continue to count down Pro Wrestling's Top 50.